Hello, dear viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. In today's video, I'm going to mix a track shared with me graciously by Mr. Ned Rush, the track called Kinetica from his album Mode 1, and I'm going to mix them using the new set of devices from Monomono. It's called Console 8056. It sort of emulates the experience of mixing on a console using inside your Ableton Live. And it is in no way a competition. I'm not going to sort of compete with the mix you can hear on Spotify, but rather my take, my imprint, and my demo of my mixing process. And I'm also going to talk through devices themselves. I'm going to talk through the thought process behind them, what they do, how can they be used, and so on. It is in no way limiting. My mixing process is mine, and you can have yours. And so, yeah, let's jump into the mixing process. So I've got my track session open here in Ableton that shared stems with me. And first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to listen to the whole track, and I'm going to just balance levels for each track the way kind of I see it. I have a final mix from him as well, which I'm gonna use mostly to just make sure I don't miss anything. I don't I haven't lost anything. So that's it. I've already renamed the track, did the usual cleaning up, and so yeah, let's go. Oh yeah, this video is gonna be long, but I'm pretty lazy and terrible with editing, so I'm just gonna put timestamps. I'm gonna edit it as much as I can, but feel free to just jump around and watch the thing what you're interested in. Alright, now we're good. To give you a little bit of background what I'm doing, I'm making all my tracks about -10 dB. That's my usual stuff, just to make sure I get like -6 on the whole mix, so I have a little bit of headroom for mixing and mastering. I'm gonna see my mixer here. Alright, there we go. We actually don't need a bunch of stuff. Don't need sends, we don't need ins and outs. I'm gonna make this taller. There we go. Alright, so yeah, I'm gonna just level all the tracks just to make it sort of only using the levels. I'm gonna try to mix it as to my best abilities. That's a great intro. This is really fun. Just amazing track, in my opinion. Some exceptional drum work, as you'd expect from Duncan, and some fantastic parts on bass. And I really like this orchestra parts. It kind of feels like it's a John Barry influence, which Nat has a little bit unhealthy fascination with, but it's fine. Well, not fine. It just sounds great, actually. I think. So, what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna listen to it again, and I'm gonna just compare a couple of parts. Some things I noticed which I thought I would do a little bit differently from his mix, and I'm gonna compare it to the mix as well. I feel like bass just needs a little bit sharper because it feels like it takes a little bit too much space, but I really have no idea what the artistic decisions were behind the mix. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna imprint my own opinions on this whole mix, and we'll see where it comes. Maybe it's gonna be better in some places. Maybe it's gonna be worse. I don't know. We'll see. And I really like the drums. I feel the outro. Well, the kick drum is a little bit muted. I think I would like it to be a little bit more pronounced and a little bit more kind of imposing. The whole drum section, I feel I just want it to be a little bit sharper, and with bass, I think it's gonna work really nicely. I'm a little bit unsure about this whole 4-part, 5-part orchestra part, but we'll see where we get to it. I really love those guitar solos, guitar playing. I think it works great. So yeah, we'll see. Let's just jump into listening to it again, comparing to the original mix. Let's see what the difference are. Let's try to kind of think what the artistic decisions were, just to make sure we don't lose anything. We don't lose any instruments, any kind of rhythm there. So yeah, let's do it again. Yeah, I definitely want this part to be a little bit louder. Alright, it's pretty muted here as well. Just a lot brighter with a little bit less mid-range. It's a lot brighter and the bass is a lot more pronounced in the original, but otherwise it's a similar balance. Yeah, the drums are kind of more should be a little bit sharper. I kind of like the drums to be a little bit more kind of mid-rangey. I feel like the track is a little bit bright, and I'm gonna try to kind of do a little bit more mid-ranger sound. We'll see if it's gonna work better or not, but we'll know. Oh yeah, this part is fantastic, where the guitar sort of plays the same part as the orchestra. I think it's just a tremendous piece. Alright. I'm not sure I'm hearing those mallets here. Let me see. Oh, it sounds like just a ride. Alright, let's see. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I can hear it. There's a build-up. There's a build-up of orchestra from like 5 parts, and I'm not quite sure what's the level is going to be on them, so I'm going to keep them as they are, because they sort of sound well by the end, whereas sort of the crescendo part. But we'll see further down the road. I love it. Alright, I love it. So here's a couple of thoughts. I'm not gonna go through this whole mixing process like up to an end. I'm not gonna submit it to the artist. There's no pressure, there's no delivery, so I'm not gonna go into a lot of automating. I'm just gonna balance it out, maybe pan things a little bit left and right, see how it works. But essentially, I'm gonna stop before I go into like very detailed mixing with automation and stuff. Just because it's gonna take a lot more time, and I feel one of the main purposes of this video should be showing how to use devices. So I'm gonna go with that. So I'm okay with how it's balanced. I'm gonna use like EQ compression, and I'm gonna balance those tracks a little bit more with specifically EQ. And since the dynamics probably gonna change, we'll see if we need to adjust those levels. But what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna make a copy of this mix because I'm gonna refer to it. Maybe we'll put a limiter on. God damn it, I'm having a stroke, sorry. Maybe we'll put a limiter on and we'll boost it a little bit just to kind of get it to the same level as the mix. And then I'm gonna drop a few things on just to kind of hear a rough master, how the rough master is gonna be like. So we'll do that. Alright, so we have a dry mix. Let's call it console 8056. Let's mute that because we're going to use this as a reference. And let's work our way through it. So let's start with intro. We've got like a drum part intro with bass and the keys and some guitar here. So I'm gonna listen to the whole part, and maybe I'm just gonna kind of add instruments one by one to hear how they are balanced out. Maybe I'll go into discussing the devices, and yeah. So let's listen to the intro. All right, so let's start here. So I've got my drums, and I'm gonna introduce some of the devices I've been working on. So we're gonna start with pre and EQ. And together those devices are basically inspired by the 1073 channel strip. It basically is a preamp which adds saturation and changes some frequency response for the signal, while EQ is pretty much a collection of filters with a spread. And the idea behind it is you have to kind of think about this as an input sensitive device. So depending on how loud the signal going into the preamp, the harmonics added will change. So and the in the end of the kind of on the output, the signal is going to be distorted. So you have to be aware of the signal what is coming in. That's why it has the input dial, and the idea is that you dial the input. You can change sort of the character and the kind of the signature of the sound with how much drive the preamp. You can adjust the input signal accordingly, or if you want a really distorted signal, which distorts in the preamp, you can actually compensate the increase of volume on the outputs of the EQ73. So to demonstrate this, let me just make it really simple. Just listen to this drum section, straight solo. And let me just demonstrate how it sounds when I cut the inputs 40 dB, but I boost or rather drive the preamp 40 dB. Let's see how this signal kind of changes. So you can hear there's a little bit kind of, it's a little bit brighter, a little bit kind of, a little bit of saturation, a little bit of harmonic distortion is added, but it also sounds a little bit more bassy, and the top end is a little bit brighter. That's because of the frequency response changes and because of the added saturation to the mix. But what I like to do is that I like to dial some drive to kind of drive the signal and saturate it a little bit, add a little bit of distortion, and then I take out the added kind of loudness on the outputs of the EQ. So let's do that. So I'm gonna add, let's say, like 6 dB, and I'm gonna cut 6 dB as well. So So you can hear it starts to distort. So that's a bit too much. So let me go to, let's say 12 dB, and I'm gonna cut 11 dB. Let's see. So you can obviously hear that even without any EQing happening on the EQ, there's some differences in the frequency response. It's a little bit brighter, a little bit bassier. There's a little bit more saturation. So yeah, that's how I use them. That's how I like to use them, as sort of a channel strip with a very simple EQ. And the EQ is fairly deceiving, I think, because it looks pretty simple. There's just 3 bands, and one of them is just fixed, and a high-pass filter. But in essence, in most of the cases, that's all you need if you sort of switch your thinking to just broad strokes. I feel, as much as I love stock EQ, like stock plugins on Ableton, they're one of the best. I feel they still kind of require to be precise and kind of think in terms of like what frequencies to cut, where to cut them, and it sort of asks you for precision. And I feel the main benefit of like fixed frequency EQ is that it allows you to think in broad strokes. Like, I want more like high end on this. It sounds a little bit dull. I want to increase a little bit, on the top end of the spectrum, or the bass is a little bit lacking. I just add this. So you have, like, with just a couple of simple motions, you basically can dial the sound. And since it's limited in its nature, you don't really spend a lot of time just adjusting all those details, and it's very fast, very quick, and you get to the end points a lot quicker than you would in like working with something like EQ8 and so on. So yeah, let me demonstrate. So it's just 4 fixed frequencies for the low band. There are more frequencies for the mid-range, and it's a bell curve which goes up, or it's a notch which goes down, and the top shelf is fixed at around 12K, and it goes up and down as well, so you can make it either brighter or cuts a little bit of brightness out. And you also have a high-pass filter, which is, I would say, a little bit kind of with a little bit more like bigger jumps than I would prefer. But again, if you think about this in the context of broad strokes, like let me get where I want, let me get a better sound with just a couple of strokes, then it's just a perfect thing. So let's go. And one last thing to show you is the spread function, which is fairly simple. It sort of mixes channel left and right channels between each other in some in sort of a like MS way, but in a simple manner. You can change the width of what is coming out of your channel if it's a stereo channel with some differences, and like full counterclockwise there's going to be a full mono, while it's going to be a little bit wider if you spread it to the max. So let's see. So that's the original. So I'm gonna leave a little bit of spread on and move on. So let's go with the rest. I'm gonna do the same for the bass for now. I'm gonna use the same channel strip, and I'm gonna cue it as well. But I want to demonstrate the compressor Comp54, which I feel is a really great fit for bass parts as well as drums, but we'll get to it once we go through the intro part. I'm gonna try to speak less and kind of move on a little bit quicker on the parts I already explained, but if you have any questions, just feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll address them as to my best abilities. Right, so with the bass, I think I like when it's a little bit kind of jangly, and you can hear a little bit more of the like low mid range. So I'm gonna boost 700 hertz. I'm gonna boost a little bit of low end, but we'll see if it's actually necessary once we compress it. And I'm gonna boost a lot of top end just to kind of add a little bit of this bass sounds, because we'll see how it's going to sound. I'm not quite sure it's going to be 700 hertz. Maybe I'll boost 1.6 kilohertz, but we'll see in the mix. What I wanted to do is sort of demo a little bit the compressor, how it sounds on the bass, and the compressor itself is based on a diode bridge compressor, which was made famous by Rupert Neve. It was designed by Rupert Neve for the TV and studios, and it has a very interesting kind of background how it works. It basically uses diodes to rectify the signal as well as gain attenuation inside. It's a very interesting concept, and out of all compressors I've used, I feel it's the most characterful. It produces the most distortion, and it also has the most kind of unique and interesting sound. Because if you compare something like a lot of VCA compressors, like mostly look the same. Sound the same to me. While this has very, very distinct kind of operation. And I really liked it on drums. I really like it on bass. I feel it works great on stuff you want to control as well. But in this case, what I want to do is I want to still control the bass, kind of duck it a little bit down, but I want the first pick the first transient that Ned is playing. I want to come through the mix. I want to kind of retain the rhythmical part of it, but go kind of a little bit behind when the whole mix is playing, because I feel in the main mix the bass is a little bit overwhelming, at least to me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to increase the attack, and attack means basically how long before the compressor starts ducking the signal when it goes above the threshold. I set the threshold at -8. This basically means when the signal is louder than -8 dB, the compressor gonna trigger. It waits for the attack. It waits until attack kind of timing. Well, I'm oversimplifying, but essentially it's what's that. So it waits for the attack timing to come through, and then it starts ducking. And the release, I'm gonna go with auto, and I'm gonna retain the fast kind of attack. And what auto does, so there are kind of fixed timings on the release, on the recovery, and there are two attack modes, two auto modes. And what auto mode does, it basically has two timings for the recovery, and it still kind of reacts quickly when the signal kind of comes down, but it also evens out and leveling the signal a little bit, so it doesn't go straight back to the 0 dB when it goes over the threshold, but it's slowly kind of recovering. And the way it works is pretty interesting. If you look at the schematics, it's kind of an additional parallel resistor and not resistor, but capacitor, and it charges and discharges as the signal kind of passes through. And honestly, I did not feel the timings on the hardware were actually particularly useful. I can't say I really like them. So in this particular case, while everything else is retaining the original hardware timings and retaining the design, I worked like to my best abilities. It kind of follows very, very closely to how Compressor works, but the auto settings I really felt need some tuning, so I changed them a little bit to make a little bit more useful and kind of musical. So yeah, let's hear how it works. Alright, let's hear it in a mix. Yeah, you can hear it sort of cuts through the mix a lot better, because it's not just the low frequencies, because we've boosted a little bit of 700. And with the compressor, it sort of cuts, the initial attack cuts through the mix really well, but then it goes down just not to mud the mix. I feel it works really well. Alright, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to just go through the whole mix. I'm going to cut back on comments. I feel I sort of explained the devices a little bit more, and I'm going to explain them a little bit more in the end of the video when we hear the mix. And feel free to just jump to the outro, whatever I'm going to do there. And yeah, so I'm going to shut up. I'm just going to focus on mixing. And feel free to stay if you're interested how it comes out. But otherwise, talk to you soon, or rather see you soon. Alright, just a quick break. I can see my main bus is clipping a little bit, so I'm gonna add a limiter for now. Let's just to maintain it, I'm gonna use a different set of devices on the master bus, so we'll get to it when we get to it. So yeah. So I'm gonna use curves on the drum bus because I feel it just needs a little bit more tone shaping. I'm gonna kind of apply it to the whole bus instead, and I'm gonna do this probably before the compressor. All right, I feel it's the moment where I can put something on a master bus and see, kind of continue mixing into it. And just to give you a little bit overview, what I did, I basically used channel strips on most of the tracks, on drums and on bass. On bass, I also used compressor, and I also used compressor with like very mid attack and fast recovery for drums. And I used Curves EQ, which is a sort of reimagination of the Pultec. And with guitars, I went really simple. I feel they sound completely fine with me. I added a little bit of saturation to kind of boost the top mid, but we'll see if it's even necessary when we hear it in the mix and make adjustments on the whole main bass. For the orchestra, I've used the same set. I've used curves for to kind of shape the sounds overall of the orchestral parts, and I've used compressor, but on like in a control mode mostly, just to kind of even out a little bit those transitions. I don't. I'm not completely sure it's the right way to go because I feel the idea is like when it grows, when it kind of when crescendo parts kind of approaches, the changes in dynamics is important. I don't think I kind of screwed that part out with this compressor, but I kind of feel it helps when the new parts step in and kind of change the kind of orchestral parts. And I also feel, since I've panned left and right some of the orchestral stuff, kind of helps retain this kind of glued dynamic with them. So we'll see how it goes. With those effects, I'm not 100. I did nothing with them. I just kind of leveled them, mixed them into the rest of the mix. It sounds very different from what Ned has on Spotify. I like some parts more, some parts less. I think if I'd continue mixing it further, I'd step into the automation territory, just cutting parts out, automating EQs and everything. And by the way, you can completely automate all the dials on those devices. But I don't think I have time for this. I don't think this video needs to be that long. Yeah, let's just listen it a little bit and see what we need on the main bass. And I'm gonna show you some tricks which you can do with this Monomono set. All right, let's start from the top. All right, so the master is much louder. So what I'm gonna do is go with my usual suspects. I'm gonna go with, like, first of all, let me show you another device we've come up with and what it's for. So with the sets of full console mix also includes console 80 device, which basically emulates the summing amplifier, and it adds a little bit of harmonics, it changes the frequency response, and it also allows you to switch the noise floor coming from the actual devices themselves. So let me demonstrate this. And one of the important bits, which I really like, is the soft clipping on it. It's a 3-stage soft clipping, which kind of cuts a little bit off at different stages, so it sounds pretty interesting, I would say. And why it's there, let me explain this a little bit. So you have channels inside the console, and some of the electronics in it is passive, some of it is active. And what console, inside the console, there's wiring, you're summing a lot of channels together. So what happens really is that there's constant drop and compensation of level. So it drops on the passive parts, it's compensated with the amplifying parts. And with the console summing, what happens is, since you use passive summing, some of the gain loss is happening with the passive devices. Some of the changes is happening with the wiring that goes through a console. A lot of wires is necessary to do this, and the wires can be pretty long. So the summing amplifier basically takes the signal after it's summed, several channels are summed, and then it amplifies the signal to whatever the level engineers have come up with. It's probably 0 dBu or -4, depending on what the wiring is. But essentially, it emulates that. So when you sum channels together, active components or transformers, they sort of impart their own sound onto the group, onto the bus. So this is what console AT is for. And to give you a little bit of background how these devices came about in the first place, I've mixed on a console myself for a few years, and it was not the it's exciting. It's always exciting until you kind of have to recall previous session made adjustment to the mix. So I stepped away from it. I still own a big studio console, which I don't think I use a lot, and I'm not looking forward to using it, if I'm honest. But the feel of when the mix is happening on a console is really, really satisfying. And I've opened the Luna DAW from whatever, Universal Audio, and they have this comprehensive summing experience inside it. Basically, they try to emulate the console. They have different kind of channel strips. You can plug different things into the channels, and you also have this sort of console summing idea, which adjusts the fader response. It probably adds some harmonics onto it, and they did a great job. I think it's a fantastic console, fantastic product. It's, first of all, I feel a bit too expensive, probably because it's aimed at professional people who are making money of it, or have very professional approach, professional musicians. And I also thought, how hard can it be to actually produce similar thing inside live? So my thinking was, all right, if I do the channel with preamp and EQ section, if I have a device on the buses or on the groups which actually kind of emulates this summing amplifier from inside the console at unity gain, I feel like I can achieve similar results. And I thought, kind of building upon this idea, when I was starting to test, and I thought, maybe I can do more with this. And there are a couple of things which I really like on this device. So first of all, let me copy this to all the groups. We have drums, we have keys, we also have, and I'm gonna put it first because it sort of comes before. So we have guitar. Yep. All right, and we also have an orchestra, right? So we'll do on the orchestra. I'm gonna put it first. Is there anything else? All right, the rest isn't important. So what I basically did here is that I've put this bus summing device on all buses, on all groups I have. And what I'm also going to do, I'm going to put this console AT device on the main bus. And what it does, it basically kind of emulates the main, the master out. And I'm going to show a couple of tricks to you. So let's just play, and I'll explain. So a couple of options we have for the console 80, and just to be clear, it has this noise floor settings. When if I turn off, it adds noise on all channels where devices are present. So you have this sort of noise that is coming from console channels on a hardware, and it adds to this authentic feel, and it also kind of affects the sound just a tiny bit. That said, it also has two summing settings, which changes the frequency response of devices which are on your channel, and also on your bus if we're talking about a compressor. It changes the headroom where saturation hits inside the devices as well, and it changes the frequency response of the filters. And you can see this, it's kind of slightly visible here, the kind of frequency response curve. And kind of to give you a short version of it, the vintage version is basically has a little bit more mid-range. It's a little bit more compressed, while there's a little bit slope, a little bit of a filter on the top end at the kind of 18 kilohertz or something. And it also has a little bit more pronounced low end. While modern sounds flatter, sounds cleaner because it has more headroom, saturation kind of hits a little bit later. So it sounds a little bit cleaner. If you kind of miss a little bit of high end, go with modern. If you like the sort of punchy mid-range sounds, go with vintage. I feel it's best. So let me demonstrate just how different it sounds. And even if you have several of those console-80 devices, they are all connected. So changing the settings on one will change it on all of them and inside all the devices. So it doesn't matter how many you have them. You don't have to turn or switch anything on all of them, just one. So let's just test it out a little bit. So you can hear there's a difference in kind of how it sounds in modern and vintage summing setup. So I also can see that my main bus is clipping a little bit, like 0.7 dB. And this soft clip settings only relevant to a specific device you turn it on. And what I like to do, sometimes I turn it on the groups as well, but I like to turn soft clipping only on the master bus, only on when it goes into the kind of last piece of summing. And that way, I also kind of watch the levels. I don't like to clip more than like a dB or something, especially on the master bus. It's definitely an artistic choice to push more into the bus and clip it and then cut back the loudness of this bus, but it always goes to what feels best for you. So do whatever you feel sounds good, and never listen that something isn't right. Always just do what you feel sounds better. That's my advice essentially. So let's see how it works. I think I like vintage a bit more. I feel the snare becomes a little bit more snappier and fatter. So we'll keep that for now. And my usual go-to devices for the master bus are I'm gonna start with curves just to shape the overall sound of the mix. Going into Opticomp, which has very gentle compression curves, and I really like to have a little bit of compression there. We'll hear how it sounds, and I'm gonna end up the whole mastering chain with a tape. And all this together, sort of, the idea is that it becomes this analog chain you're using in your Ableton Live. It takes a little bit of that digital age you have in a lot of recordings and a lot of produced stuff. It sounds more natural to me. It sounds a little bit heftier in a low end. It just sounds exactly how I would expect like this if I'd be doing this in an analog. It sounds close to me. It sounds something I would expect. So let's hear a mix. Let's work a little bit of our master chain. Let's see where can we get. So on my Opticomp, I think I like when the bass is coming through, so I'm gonna cut a little bit of a side chain here, and I'm gonna compress no more than probably 2 dB, because it feels the best kind of work level for me when I put it on a master bus. My goal here is to push kind of closer to 0, but still retain some dynamics in the mix. There's no hard rule. It usually depends on the client, on what kind of like deliveries he's making after I like give them masters. There's no hard rule, although I think like RMS, when I look at RMS level, I think it could be around like -12 to -10, depending again very much on the context, on the material. But in this case, like based on what I'm hearing from my setup, I feel it could be around like -10. We'll see how it's gonna work out. So yeah. All right, my RMS is like about -13. I feel there's a little bit of room to push it up, so we'll see. right, we have pretty comparable loudness to what the master kind of sound has. So now we can probably compare it a little bit more apples to apples rather than it was before. So yeah, let's just listen through different parts. Let's see how it sounds, and compare maybe to a mix, just for the sake of hearing if anything is lost and anything if everything is there. That's a fantastic track. I love it so much. The more I work on it, the more I enjoy the sound of it. I think it's just great. So, like, I feel it's good enough. I feel that's the condition I would send the clients. I've sent this to the client. I'm not gonna go. There's definitely some things I would change with some automation, with some additional mixing, maybe split like some channels and process them a little bit differently. But I'm not gonna do this. So this video is already too long. But one last thing I want to show you is a little kind of Easter egg you can find in all of our devices, but in this case it's a little bit special. So on the console 80 device, if you go to the backplate by clicking on the Mono logo, you will find a little bit different situation than on the rest of our devices. So I've shared this previously, that essentially we have a system of serials in all of our devices, and what it does is that you assign a serial to the left and the right channel, and it sort of sends, when you change the serial, it sort of sends different variables, tolerances inside devices, and it changes processing the left and right channel differently. And with this, I went a step further. You kind of have to consider that in a console, the components age at different rates. The kind of old channels sound a little bit different because the tolerances inside of components, because they age, because like different material goes through them, different voltage and so on. So all channels inside the console have a particular sound to it. They all sound different. And for me, a way to replicate this is through a serial system we've came up with previous devices, but with console 80, it's a little bit different. So we have same two buttons for stereo processing and for random. And to explain it a little bit, random assigns random left and right serial to left and right channel. So difference between left and right channel is a lot more pronounced. Like not a lot more really, but a little bit more pronounced. While stereo operation kind of assigns one serial following the other. So the difference between left and right channel are like very, very kind of consistent. The difference is very small, like the left to right channel is very consistent. So what I like to do by the end of the session, I'm going to press this randomize channel strips, and what it will do, it will randomize all serials on all devices you have in a project. And they basically impart a little difference between the left and right channel. And it will sound wider. It will open up the mix. It will sound wider, especially if you use any sort of mid-side processing or any widening thing. So let's hear it. I'm going to switch back and forth. It's not a very strong effect. It's not a strong effect. It's subtle, but it's there. And you definitely can feel the difference when it's like very consistent, no serials were changed, and when it's like fully randomized. And you can click over and over like for the best kind of thing that works. So let's try. that's pretty much it. I really appreciate you guys watching. Like, it's been a particularly boring video. We'll see if I can edit it out, and if not, well, sorry about that. And thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave your comments, your questions in the comment section, and I will do my best to answer them, maybe with a follow-up video. And yeah, good luck with your mixing and producing.